Hello everyone, I'm citizen spokesperson Westropp-Evans, and today is August 15th, 2024. This is the daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, and we're live on Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and available afterwards wherever you get your podcasts. So please start submitting questions in the chat, and as always, like and subscribe to help us reach out to a wider audience. Today is day 314 of the October 7th war and the Hamas hostage crisis. The world needs to pressure Hamas to let the hostages go now. This is the critical moment. Israel, the US, and mediators are meeting today in Qatar for ceasefire talks, and Hamas is refusing to negotiate at all. The hostages' families are demonstrating, demanding the Israeli government to bring them home. But Hamas needs to be given a reason to let them go. Hamas started this war. It doesn't want to end it. And rewarding Hamas for October 7th is not the way to force them to let them go. The US or other allies offering any form of inducements to Hamas or Iran for that matter, however well-meaning, is only weakening Israel's case. These talks shouldn't be about how far Israel should be blackmailed to get the hostages back, but of how much pressure can be put on Hamas and their backers, Iran, Turkey, and Qatar. Hamas has been abusing the hostages for 10 months now in their terror dungeons, and Hamas's heinous acts must not be rewarded. Hamas and its Iranian patrons must not be allowed to see the horrors they inflicted on October 7th as any form of victory. Hamas and the Iranian regime cannot be told that terror works, or else Hamas will do October 7th again and again and again, as Hamas has explicitly promised. The people of Israel know two things. Our hostages must be freed from Hamas today, and Hamas must not have the ability to take more hostages tomorrow. That means Israel needs a deal that gets the hostages home and stops Hamas from regrouping and plotting to do October 7th again and again, as they have promised to do. So tell your leaders, pressure Hamas and its backers, Iran, Turkey, and Qatar, to let them go now. Now, the Iranian regime, is trying to blackmail Israel at the negotiation table. Iran is saying that if its Gazan proxy army doesn't get what it wants, then the Iranian regime will attack Israel directly. Either Israel allows Hamas to survive and carry out another October 7th, or the Iranian regime will try to exceed April 13th when it launched 300 plus missiles and drones at the people of Israel. Now, in the meantime, the Iranian regime seems to be suffering from a massive cyber attack which shut down its banking. The culprits, thus far unknown. And the US has positioned significant military assets in the region capable of blunting Iranian aggression, as they helped Israel do on April 13. And the US just okayed a major military sale to Israel valued at over $20 billion worth of military equipment. That includes dozens of fighter jets and tens of thousands of tank shells. So the regime in Iran should be clear. Israel is not isolated, nor is it alone, and blackmail most certainly will not work. The free world understands that those in the Iranian regime and its proxy armies aren't just enemies of Israel. They are enemies of the free world. So with all that said, please like and subscribe to help us reach out to a wider audience and get our message across to all those in the world. And I'm now ready to take some questions from our audience who are watching live on social media. So please keep sending in your questions.
Our first question comes from Shlomo on X. The Hamas-run health ministry has reported that they've reached over 40,000 dead. How does Israel respond to this?
These numbers, frankly, whether they be exactly correct or whether they be embellished, are frankly terrible. This many civilians that have been killed, and the many civilians that have been killed in Gaza, is frankly a tragedy. But that being said, we need to be clear on why this tragedy has occurred. This tragedy occurred because Hamas decided on October 7th unilaterally to enter Israel, to massacre its people, killing 1,200, taking over 250 back into their terror dungeons, holding those hostages captive for now 10 months. And to think that all these people could potentially be alive if this were not the case today, if Hamas hadn't decided to perpetrate the heinous atrocities on October 7th, all those in Gaza and in Israel could still be alive today. I would also like to make very clear, Israel has no compunctions and makes no regrets for the death of Hamas fighters, people that Hamas itself and the Hamas-run health ministry does not delineate between when they report the numbers that they do report. And to be clear, those numbers themselves are also definitely open to question and have been proven repeatedly, time and time again, to be false, to be unreliable, and frankly, to be just simply unsubstantiated. But regardless of what true numbers are, as I said, all civilian deaths are indeed a tragedy. But Israel stands by its actions in dismantling Hamas in the Gaza Strip, killing their combatants who murdered Israelis in their beds and took them out of their homes, killed them, elderly, children, all those as they slept, as they worked, as they tried to go on with their lives. Hamas started this war. Hamas is the reason this war is being perpetuated. And if they would come to the negotiating table today and reach a conclusion to get our people back to us now and return the hostages to us, then we could reach a ceasefire and reach some sort of conclusion that would prevent further civilian deaths, which is something that I think we can all stand behind as a positive.
Our next question comes from Nancy on Instagram Live. What interest does Hamas have in letting the hostages go? Keeping the hostages gives them leverage. What pressure can we put on them?
Nancy, that is the key question that we need to be asking ourselves today, and exactly what Israel and its allies need to be pushing for. This is about providing engaging leverage. Hamas has needs. The people of Gaza, more importantly, have needs. As we've seen and said before, there are many needs from the basic humanitarian right up to the higher level, actions of health support, of development, of bringing a conclusion to this ceasefire. But you're exactly right, Nancy. Hamas themselves needs to have that pressure put on from all sides, from their backers and funders in Iran, Turkey, and Qatar, who are continuing to provide them with resources and continuing to provide them with support and a sense that there is a future for Hamas. Hamas needs to be fully and functionally dismantled. The Gaza Strip needs to be disarmed, and we need to have our hostages returned to us before we can reach any sense of normalcy and moving past this heinous status quo in which we've all lived for the last 10 months since Hamas began their atrocities and massacre on October 7th. Hamas needs to have the pressure put on it now, so there is no choice. And that pressure needs to come from all sides, from Israel, of course, from their allies all around the world, and indeed from the people of Gaza, who need to understand the reality that this war ends when Hamas is dismantled, when the hostages are returned, and when we can somehow end into some sort of normalcy and help everyone move forward with their lives. All those civilians that we spoke about in the past, they can help to move forward with their lives as those in Israel can do the same. That is what we are striving for. Those are the goals that need to be resolved here today. And that is why there are currently ceasefire negotiations ongoing, even though Hamas continues to not be willing to come to the table because they believe that there is some other chance out there. We need to close that down. There is no other chance. There is no other possibility. Come to the negotiating table, negotiate with Israel, and we will be able to move forward once Hamas is properly dismantled and the hostages, most importantly, are returned.
We're seeing lots of questions on social media asking about Sinwar. Do we have any idea where Sinwar is? Linda is asking, and Malin is asking, do we think that he's hiding in the tunnels to Egypt?
I mean, to think of exactly, what Sinwar may be up to, who he might be surrounding himself with, whether he's surrounded by hostages, Gazan civilians, whether he's fled to Egypt indeed and is operating from there. I mean, in truth, we don't exactly know. He has buried himself deep within the viper's nest that exists inside the Hamas-run operations in Gaza and what remains of them. And this is a key point, circling back to that point around the negotiations and ceasefire deals. We need to have a deal in place that completely dismantles the remaining infrastructure. The fact that Sinwar can hide in his hole, like so many of those overthrown dictators, terrorists of the past, I'm thinking of Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, Osama bin Laden. These are the names that we should be comparing Sinwar to in understanding where he is in his hidey hole, protecting himself with the innocence of those that are around him. Hamas's infrastructure needs to be dismantled. We need to have a clear determination where Sinwar is, what he is doing, how he is operating, and prevent him from being able to perform the sort of actions that he has promised to do again and again. I'm talking, of course, about the October 7th massacre, which Hamas has promised, if given the opportunity, they would perpetrate again and again and again. We need to understand the horror of what these people would really want to do if given the power to do so, and ensure that not just today, not just tomorrow, but forever after, it is not possible for them to perpetuate these sort of horrors and atrocities again. And that is exactly what we are trying to do here. That is the reason that Israel is coming in good faith to the negotiating table and is attempting to reach a ceasefire so we can try and move forward beyond a status quo so people can sleep safely in their beds at night. Children, the elderly, those all across Israel, and frankly, as we can see now, across the Middle East, and perhaps even the world, can sleep safely with the understanding that these sort of monsters who perpetuate the heinous acts that they did on October 7th will not be allowed to get away with what the crimes that they commit.
Our next question comes from Sammy on YouTube. Can you give an update on what's happening about the Haredi draft to the IDF?
Sammy, frankly, there is a lot of complex issues going on in Israel as it comes to a stretched resource that is the IDF and the Israeli military. With 10 months under our belt, reservists who've been called up and are fighting on all fronts diligently, it is always a complex time for Israel to try and utilize as many resources as it can while still keeping the thriving and functioning economy that we have here in Israel, the amazing production and capabilities that we have here all across the country. When it comes to specific domestic issues, I'm going to leave that to others to say and speak about and focus on. That's not our place here at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. Our goal here is to help you to understand the drain and difficulty that the Israeli people are facing, but also the resources that we have available to us. And that is an incredible military service and incredible people, young people throughout this country who are helping to fight for Israel, to help keep it safe and protected. I have so many friends and family who are doing unbelievable jobs, helping out there every day to protect Israel's borders, to fight against its enemies, and to ensure that we're all able to sleep safely in our beds at night. And those are the people I want to focus on in our message here today, because they are out there and have been for 10 long months fighting every day to protect Israel and protect its people. And I think that's the important message that I think we should be left here with today.
Our next question comes from Dumbo Direct on Instagram Live. Will there be Israeli elections? And if so, how will it affect the war?
No one knows exactly what's going to happen in the future of Israel's democratic system. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about Israel here as a free, liberal democracy. We individually don't get to decide. It's not by the whims of any one individual what happens, but we as a people, we as a populace will get to decide on the future of our governance and the future of our democracy. When that happens, who's to say? We'll have to let the future machinations of politics play out and see when the next elections come. But for whenever they do, Israel will continue to be a free and open democracy that will get to decide on its future and get to decide by its people, will be able to decide to vote, to go out and decide individually exactly what happens. In contrast to what happens within the Gaza Strip under Hamas's tyrannical and authoritarian rule, in which there are no elections. Hamas was brought to power through an electoral system in the wake of Israel pulling out. They took power completely back in 2007, and there hasn't been an election since. That is simply not the case here in Israel. We have a free, fair, and flowing democracy with many an election. Sometimes some could argue maybe too many elections as they come back to back, but whatever that may be, we will always have the freedom and right to go out and vote. And that is our great gift and joy as a liberal democracy, and something that we will always fight for here in Israel.
Our next question comes from Joshua on Instagram Live. How can Qatar be pressured not to support Hamas and other terrorist organizations in the region?
This is a very important question, and one that really delves to the fact of the global role in helping to provide and develop peace within this region. Israel is not alone, and Israel should not be alone when it comes to these sort of actions and in monitoring the sort of peace and stability in this area and in the world. Israel has many allies, whether we talk about the US, the UK, France, Germany, even as close as Jordan. We've seen other nations all around the region, around the globe, who are fighting to make sure that there is peace, security, and stability. In contrast to the likes of Iran, the Iranian regime, Qatar, and Turkey, who are nations now fighting for government regimes, should I say. I won't speak to the individual civilians in each of those countries, but our government regimes fighting to maintain a status quo, to back Hamas, to support, the Iranian sort of ring of fire that they have spread around Israel, providing the 7 fronts of action that Israel is having to fight against, of terrorist armies that Israel is having to fight against on all sides. And this is exactly why Qatar needs to, much like Iran, Turkey, and others, to be pressured to ensure that they understand that the world stands with a free, liberal, democratic nation that is Israel. They support freedom, peace. They support their move away from authoritarian tyranny. They do not support the sort of actions that are perpetuated by the likes of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, other Iranian-backed militias across Iraq and Syria, the Iranian theocratic regime, of course, of the Ayatollah in Iran itself, that they do not support these countries. And when those bases of support are weakened, and when they understand that there is a united front in the world against these sort of regimes, then Qatar and others like it will begin to understand that you cannot win through tyrannical force, and that free, fair, liberal democracies will prevail.
We're seeing lots of questions on social media asking about the recent report that the US reportedly leaked names of Mossad agents to Iran. Can you clarify and explain?
Look, I don't want to speculate on specific reports, what's going through and unverified information. It's a very important thing right now for us to understand something. There are reports, there are rumors, there are elements that come through from all sides. And while I hope and pray that journalists around the world and others giving out this information are doing their best to verify reports and verify elements wherever possible, with so much information swirling so quickly and so much developing, it's important for us not to get caught up in the specificities of believing specific elements until they can be verified to be true. This is a key message that we need to be here. We need to work in facts. That's exactly what we do here at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. We deal in facts and we deal in truth whenever we can. That is the key goal. And that is what we are striving to do here. So I won't comment on specific rumors until we get a little bit more information on them. But I will say that as ever, we hope that the US and others, our allies, are working diligently as ever to support Israel in its goals for reaching a ceasefire, to bringing our hostages back, and to trying to end this seemingly never-ending war that has been raging with Hamas for the last 10 months since they started it on October 7th with the heinous massacre they perpetuated.
Our final question comes from Sammy. Why are so many airlines canceling flights until 2025? Should we be expecting that the war will continue until then?
Sammy, again, dealing with future predictions, we can't really know what's going to happen. And as we often say here in Israel, a week, 6 weeks, it's a lifetime in Middle East politics and in the actions occurring here in Israel and around the region. As it stands right now, the threat from Iran and its proxy armies around the region is clearly real. We've seen this. Iran has said that they want to enact revenge and retribution, and they're using some very strong language as they've done so for the past several weeks. So far, we've seen no very significant action. That being said, we have continued to see rockets being fired from Hezbollah in the north. We have continued to see a lot of posturing from Iran, and we don't know exactly what the future will hold. Airlines have had to make judicious individual decisions about whether or not they're willing to fly in or out of certain airspace at certain times that I think, frankly, range from the political to the safety to also perhaps the commercial results of where they may have to fly or fly around. I'm not going to speculate on the specific governance of any individual airline, but I will say that we hope only for peace and security in the future. We hope that the ceasefire talks underway now do yield the sort of results that can lead to everyone returning to a sense of normalcy. But I can tell you here on the ground in Israel, people are continuing to live their lives normally. People are out of the beaches, they're out at cafes, they're preparing for the weekend and probably for a lovely Shabbat, which we all hope to be calm and peaceful and enjoyable. And that's really where the Israeli people stand right now, unified in that sense of wanting to continue lives of normalcy whenever possible, while recognizing the situation, recognizing the hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza, recognizing the IDF soldiers out there fighting for our safety, security, and freedom each and every day, but attempting to live some sense of normalcy. And I suggest that all those around the world do the same while being alert of what's going on around them, but continuing to not let the likes of the Iranian regime determine how we live our lives day to day. All right, well, that is all we have time for today. We'll be back with you on your feeds on Sunday. 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us, to tune in each and every day to our daily briefings. We really appreciate so much. And again, as always, if you can like, share, and subscribe, it really holds so much value to us. Just like to wish all out there a Shabbat Shalom. I'm Asher Westropp-Evans. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.